on to wellness. Like I said at the start, this particular chapter is kind of a mishmash of a bunch of different things that I think will come in handy later on, but he's got to lay the groundwork or at least get them in, or they're points that he thinks are worth our note. The first point that he makes is that Meghan has completely usurped Harry's personality when it comes to how he deals with his wellness, right? So Meghan has a whole new regimen for Harry. Boy, y'all, it is hot out here. I usually film in the morning like 4 a.m. and I didn't get to it this morning and I'm doing it now and I'm glistening, y'all. I'm glistening. Okay, anyway, it's hot out here. Sorry, but Meghan she wants Harry to understand that he can have wellness, but in a whole new way. And she would have him learn the sort of California way to approach wellness. That would include holistic medication, numbers, gongs, crystal bowls, inner calm, chakra balancing, special massages of the body, of the inner mouth. It's a whole new world for me, y'all. The man who once reeked of tobacco, not least after smoking marijuana, also stopped drinking alcohol. That's not what he was telling us in his own book, by the way. So I don't know where this information came from, but in Harry's own testimony in his book, he didn't stop doing drugs. And I mean, he found a whole new kind of healing, not from stopping the drugs, but from doing them. This was a heyday for him when it came to psychedelics, because he said psychedelics are where he really started to understand himself, or he started to have spiritual healing. I said it back then, y'all. I'll say it again this time. I never did any drugs growing up. I wasn't tempted by alcohol. I was never tempted by anything except the one thing I did want to do at a certain point in my life, though I didn't do it, was psychedelics, because I thought if people are having these spiritual experiences, that sounds kind of interesting. I kind of want to know what that is. What experience are they having that I haven't had a chance to have, right? And the more I looked into it and the more I wondered what it was, the more I realized I am opening up the world. I am opening myself up to a spiritual reality that I will not be sober-minded enough to intake. I am fully aware that there is a spiritual world out there. As a Christian, how could I think otherwise? If there is a God and that if there is good, then there is, of course, evil. You cannot have good if there isn't a counterpoint to it, because then good could not be defined. So, of course, there's evil in the world. But I also know that evilness can come as an angel of light. And I also know that darkness is not going to come at me with 10 out of 10 lies. You know, it's going to come at me with 9 truths and 1 lie. And I'm not going to know where that lie is, but I'm going to take it all in. And when I started thinking about psychedelics, I thought, I think that there's no experience that I'm going to be offered in that realm that I could not be offered sober-minded. Like, God's not going to make me jump through hoops to find him. Like, if I really believe that he sent his son to earth, he's already come all the distance, right? He's not now asking me to go to some crazy realm and then, you know, interact with little gremlins in Joker hats who might or might not tell me about my fatal flaws. God is not coming to us saying, now jump through these hoops and alter yourself. And then out of the largesse of my heart, I'll maybe give you a tidbit to gnaw on for a couple of years, but until you go on your next trip. It just seemed too weird to me, and it seemed too dangerous to me, and I never got into it. I'm glad I haven't, because I have heard so many people since deciding I'm never going to play around with that. You know, if God wants to tell me something, he'll tell it to me sober-minded. I'm so glad I never did, because there's such a risk to falling into an egregious state of your mental health. There's too much risk to it. And I'm not saying that some people don't do it and come back feeling like they have truths about themselves. But again, I don't believe that you would ever go and have a trip and it would be, I mean, sometimes it really is terrible. That you have those stories too, but you also have a lot of stories of people who say, oh, it was so great, I learned so much. But then it seems like they are never able to completely get over the hurdle of whatever it is that they went looking to find an answer to, right? So they always have to keep going back and having trip after trip, trying to figure out, how can I be a better person? How can I do differently? And anyway, Harry, I just worry and wonder if this wasn't the beginning of a new mental health challenge for him. Now, when he went, Bauer describes to us a time when Harry went to Heckfield Place Hotel in Hampshire, and he used the spa's specialties. There was breathing workshop, there was a yoga studio, there was all kinds of natural treatments that he partook in. Now, Prince Charles was an advocate for holistic healing and had wanted to change the NHS's ruling on coffee enemas as a cure for cancer. So Charles, I think, would be good with his son dabbling in this kind of stuff. I'm not against non-standard medicine. I think that there's a lot to be said for doctors who are willing to look at non-Western practices. I think that there's probably a lot of healing that could happen that is outside of our current understanding of, doctor-patient care. But I'm talking about this descent into the New Age movement that can be really, really problematic. People watched and looked on with some disdain for Harry's new personality. His conversion to full blast Markle had taken him further than anybody had ever thought that he would go. Jan Moore, who's been a source of interesting commentary this whole time, wrote that Harry was an empty royal cipher into which Meghan had poured all her fresh brewed Dreamweaver jabber, and he had allowed it, and he had swallowed it, hook, line, and sinker. Accordingly, Harry spoke the kind of pseudo-profundo New Age blather that goes down a storm in Malibu juice bars. So everybody thought that Harry was becoming a shallower version of himself and not a better one. The new Harry presented himself to 12,000 school children and students at Wembley Arena on the 6th of March for We Day, a celebration of young volunteers seeking to influence their communities and the world. This is where Harry wants everybody to know that not only is he balancing his chakra, but also he cares about the environment. And you should too, because destruction is just right around the corner. The prince urged the most engaged generation. These are his words. He said that they are the most engaged generation in history who care about values and doing the right thing to shine the light. He said they shouldn't despair when the older generation didn't seem to care. It's so hard, when you look around, you can see all the old people don't care at all. They're stuck in their old ways, but don't despair. You're the brightest generation there ever was in the history of the entire world. You're the best ones. Okay, well, look around you. People are throwing tomato soup at masterpieces. So if this is the greatest generation that has ever walked the earth, I have to say that's problematic. But he was especially incensed about climate change. He said, every blade of grass, every ray of sun, every raindrop is crucial to our survival. I think that there is nothing wrong with teaching children to take care of the environment. I have no qualms with that. We have been gifted this beautiful world. Take care of what we've been given. 100% behind that. But this hysteria that it's all going to end tomorrow is creating anxiety in young people. And it was colossally irresponsible of him to go to this group of young children and tell them that every ray of sun, every raindrop, every blade of grass is crucial to our survival. Placing this idea in their young minds that it's all going to end tomorrow. We can take care of the planet and be responsible with what we have without scaring little kids. That's kind of where I come at this whole debate with. In his speech, Harry damned social media for distorting the truth and trying to manipulate the power of positive thinking. Okay. I have my issues with social media also. I think that it is damning to people's minds. I think it is destructive to the way people think about themselves and those around them and their function in the world. But Harry, have you forgotten that you and Meghan make your living because of social media? And that if it weren't for Instagram, no, you wouldn't have even met Meghan, according to you? He says that Harry forgot that Meghan... Bauer writes that Harry forgot that Meghan's fame depended on her skill to orchestrate favorable social media. And those contradictions were buried by the audience's loud cheers as Harry dragged Meghan on the stage like she hated every minute of it. Oh, no, Harry, it's okay. No, okay, all right. Thanks, guys. Hey! The two were preaching to progressive, open-minded change makers. That was their banner. And it said, there was another that said, be braver, be stronger, be kind to each other, change your thoughts and change the world. Their performance hid the contradictions about themselves. Because while they're coming out saying, you want, be the change you want to see and all this, great message, but you have to live it. And so while they could blab about, care for the environment, you guys are the change makers, you're the next generation, you're the best people there ever was, everybody fails and falls short of you, you guys are the best ones, and be strong and be brave and be kind and be courageous and all this rah. Harry had failed to note that he was struggling to be brave, strong, and the change he wanted to see in the world, in his own world. Off stage, he felt more unfulfilled than ever. He was living at Frogmore, but he was struggling with another bout of darkness. Well, why might that be? Could it be that you've divorced yourself from all of your family? You're living in a home that's nowhere near Kensington Palace and the work that has to be done. And Meghan is making every single decision for you. Like, you are not your own man any longer. And if you felt like you were under the thumb of the palace, you have just met a bigger giant. Still angry with his brother for refusing to support wholeheartedly his campaign against the media or voice sympathy with his new age politics, Harry felt sidelined. Palace officials were investing new energy to prepare William to be the future king. But no longer in Kensington Palace and feeling physically distanced from Buckingham Palace's officials, Harry became an agent of unrest. The palace realized that Harry was becoming more and more unhappy, and now they needed to come up with a way to make him feel like he was still part of the fold. Don't worry, we still love you, we still care about you. Don't despair. You might be over there in Frogmore, but we've got you in our mind. And so for Charles' 50th anniversary of being the Prince of Wales, I put out this statement that talked about how Charles was really close to Harry, and now, thanks to Charles' excellent relationship with Meghan, they were all bound even closer than ever. So the palace is constantly running interference for Harry and Meghan and trying to placate the public's understanding of the splintering relationships, trying to fix everybody's idea. No, it's okay. We're actually really good over here. Everyone loves each other. Everyone's good. I don't understand why. It's almost like they think that by telling the world that, they're also getting that message to Harry. He's living a completely different reality. But the same thing that I've criticized Meghan for, I'll take a moment to criticize the palace for. Stop saying what isn't true. Fix what's not true, so you can go out and tell the truth. I hate this. I hate how disingenuous all this is. I hate publicity. I'm starting to really realize this now. I mean, this isn't a thing that I'd really spent a lot of time thinking about, but after reading this book, it's like, just be who you say that you are. Just fix the relationships that you keep telling everybody are really healthy. Don't waste the breath. Don't waste the energy on the lie. There's bigger things to do. If the reality is that the family's falling apart, the family's falling apart. Channel your energy into getting people help instead of constructing the next little line that the publicists can say. In reality, Harry had become an unpredictable contrarian. As a patron of expeditions for the Walking with the Wounded charity for former members of the military, Harry was eagerly welcomed at their annual meeting. Now, you'll remember that Harry had gone both to the South and North Pole with the Walking with the Wounded. This is where his little Todger met its demise. And he was really proud, though, of his participation with this group of veterans. So they invite him to this meeting. And when he got there, he was asked to show particular attention to Hans K. Rousing, a Swedish billionaire philanthropist, who was expected to donate a 6-figure check to the charity. So, Harry, be as pleasant as possible and use your platform for good. That's what he had been told to do. But oh no, now that he's got something stuck in his craw, he has all kinds of problems with everybody, and any kind of expectation that's laid on him, he immediately is slouching it off, trying to find a new way to be him. Because let's be honest, like I said, he's being squashed by Meghan. First he thought he was squashed with the palace. Now he's being squashed by Meghan. And that unrest and that agitation and not being able to find a place where he is allowed to be a man and have like a strong goal of his own that isn't being directed and led by the palace or by this woman. He just wants to be him. He's starting to act out. He's like a teenager that's acting out because they're straining against the constraints. Instead, Harry launched into a tirade about the business's failure to limit climate change. Oh, wow, that's not what you need to do. So instead of being nice to this guy, he berates the guy about climate change. Generously, Rousing still gave his donation, but insiders marked Harry down as disruptive and somebody not to include if you're really trying to cozy up to somebody. And it was out of the generosity of this man's heart that he should still give money after being browbeat by this red-headed prince. In Kensington Palace, Amy Pickrell, Meghan's new assistant private secretary, followed Samantha Cohen and resigned after just 1 year. Like many junior staff after her experience in Australia and Fiji, she found working for Meghan stressful. Not surprisingly. In an effort to negotiate an amicable solution, the Queen has run the gamut of the people that she can call for help. Who do you think she calls next for help? Do we remember Geit? Remember how he was let go because Charles and Andrew had a little bitch fit about his inclusion? And when Geit said, hey, everybody, we should be on Team Queen here, quit your side projects, they got together and went whining to Mummy. And so she got rid of Geit. Well, she's calling him back into action. Lord Geit, help us. And he was asked to please help embed Meghan fixedly and permanently in the royal family. Clearly, she's got almost both feet off the door. Help us. So he had the idea of giving Meghan the appointment as the first vice president of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, responsible for education. But of course, they didn't think that position was going to be enough to hold her. So then they said, since she wants so desperately to leave, Harry kept talking to the family. She wants to go, she wants to go, she wants to go. Never saying exactly what her motivation for going was. We know it's because she wanted to continue to build her own career. But what was being said by Harry was she wants to go because Britain has been a cruel and unusual environment for her and she needs to get out. So Geit says, well, what if we gave you all a permanent appointment in South Africa? Harry, you've always said that was your second home. Would that be something you're interested in? But of course, nobody believed that Meghan would ever be able to endure Africa. More insiders were speculating that she intended to return to California. And their suspicion was sparked by her plan to resume her role as an influencer. So, remember you guys, she has been given an entire staff of royal publicists to work for her and to put her in the media in positive ways, also to teach her how to be a royal and how to carry herself. And William and Harry have the same help. It's not like they just gave it to Meghan because she doesn't know any better. These people tell Meghan how to conduct herself, how to carry herself, what she should and shouldn't do, and what she can anticipate from the media if she does X, Y, and Z. Also, they let her know what stories are coming out, what she should be abreast of, what she can do to craft an image, what she's doing well. She has people, but they're not doing her work here. They're not doing what she wants. They're never saying what she wants them to say. She longs for the days when she had the TIG and when she had her Instagram and when she was the one in charge of the words coming out of her mouth and when she could craft a narrative and hurry to the scene of the crime when somebody said something they shouldn't about her and she could quell those rumors or, put some kind of little feisty comeback out there. That's what she wants. So she's decided, to hell with the palace and their publicists, I want to be my own person. So she decides the best place to go is Instagram. She wants to call her own shots, and so they've got @SussexRoyal on Instagram where she can rush to the scene and put out her own words, put out her own pictures, do her own thing, and she is not beholden to whatever's going on at the palace. The Sussex celebrity guaranteed attention. So unlike before when she was a basic nobody, she wouldn't have any trouble building a platform if she could finally just get to one. Choosing Instagram as a social media platform for the official website of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex was contentious, though, because Instagram in particular was criticized for fueling anxiety, depression, addiction, and especially very bad for young girls. So if Meghan is really concerned about young women and what's best for them, deciding to call all of the attention on her on Instagram is contrary to all the things she says she cares about, because Instagram is not good for young girls. Instagram is so bad. Instagram is bad for us grown-ups. Okay? It's not a good place to spend your time. It's a time waster, first and foremost. But then secondarily, all it does is make you want a life that you don't currently have. It's just everybody's highlight reel all the time. It's beautiful people and they're, and they're looking the best they've ever looked. And, there you are in your pajamas with potato chip crumbs down the front and you feel terrible. Look, that person was in their pajamas with potato chip crumbs down their front, not but 2 seconds before they decided to doll up and take a picture, right? But you don't get that reality. So anyway, them deciding that Instagram was the way to go, fundamentally problematic. The new website was designed by Ryan Sachs and David Watkins. They had been the creative agency based out of Toronto who had been in charge of the design of the TIG. At the same time, SussexRoyal.com and SussexOfficial.uk were registered using servers in Arizona. Simultaneously, Meghan's long-term Los Angeles business advisor, Andrew Mayer, registered 2 websites, American Friends of SussexRoyal.com and the American Friends of SussexRoyal.com. You guys, could this mean anything other than she's moving to America? She never had any intentions of doing her Canada thing. She never had any intentions of staying in England. Never did she even contemplate the idea that she'd go live in Africa, of all places. This girl was looking to get to America and get there fast. To recruit new followers to her platform, Meghan featured in London as a thought leader on a panel to celebrate International Women's Day in early March 2019. Asked in public about social media descriptions of herself as woke, she replied, "I don't read anything. I really don't. It's much safer that way." And she also denied reading Twitter. "I'm not part of any of that. No, I don't look at it." You don't? Well, then why are you always so upset with all of your staff about what's online? How are you finding out about that? Do you have some sort of sixth spidey sense where, oh, a tingling in my spine. Someone said something about me. Let's see, where is it? Twitter. My spine is tingling and tells me Twitter has, somebody on Twitter said something bad. The student says that Harry, hang on just a minute, I'm getting a message. Harry is a race traitor for marrying me. Well, that's how I found out. I don't read it. I don't ever read it. It just comes to me. And then I go and I tell my staff to get rid of it. After Meghan says that she never reads any of this junk, the 2 fellow panelists nodded their head in agreement and were so approving of Meghan's sane and refreshing take on social media. But the 2 panelists were also all about Meghan's insistence that the child within her was already a feminist. That, to use Meghan's words, the baby's movements, she was certain, were the embryonic kicking of feminism. Boy or girl, this child was coming out a feminist. And by the way, Harry was also a self-proclaimed feminist. Let nobody tell you otherwise. She said that Harry had benefited from what she called gender stereotype shifting, and that feminism meant that a man should not feel threatened to have a woman by his side, and that a woman should be by your side, not behind you. Okay, but the problem with this is Meghan very clearly was not even beside Harry, but clearly out in front of him. That if equality meant walking side by side, she certainly had no intention of being equal to Harry. She thought she was better than him. And she didn't want any part of this whole idea of being equal together. Hardly. She's more equal. She's better than him in every respect. And she was showing that by her continual insistence that he keep quiet, that she lead the way, that she tell him the way to go forward. Many people had noted that she was leading Harry and that Harry no longer had a voice of his own. The speech coincided with a shift in the Sussex's plan. Unknown to Geit, in anticipation of the Sussex's permanent move to America, Meghan's Los Angeles agents were negotiating with Oprah Winfrey. Geit's always the last one to know. Do you guys remember several chapters back when Harry had first met Meghan and she had told him, you need to go out there and talk about your real true self. You need to go out there and talk about the fact that you have a mental health crisis and that you're living in a chaotic darkness of depression. Let the world know your truth. And Geit had no idea that was coming, and he was horrified and shocked. And it was one of those reasons that he said, hey, everybody, let's not have our own agendas. Let's remember that we work for the Queen. Well, Geit also does not realize that Meghan's got her own thing going and that she is 100% prepared to get back to America. And she has 1,000 shady deals going on behind the scenes. The broadcaster, Oprah Winfrey, had pitched to land the first interview if Meghan returned to California. And then to sweeten her offer, she also agreed to produce with Harry a TV documentary series about mental health. So for both parties, she's got something to offer. Meghan, you love to tell your tale of woe. I'll give you a front row seat to the royalty that is Oprah. I'll let you tell me your sad sack story. And Harry, I think you're into, being down. I'll even produce a documentary where you can talk about that. So meetings are in the making, not just for Meghan, but also for Harry. They're looking for a spot for Harry also. Guided by Meghan, Harry had adopted the ideas of Brené Brown, an American psychological researcher. You guys, if you're familiar with this lady, please unfamiliarize yourself with her. She has 1,000 ideas and none of them are great. She is all about don't pretend you have it all together. You just need to lay bare your soul. You're doing it more harm than good by pretending you have it together. Okay, there is a kernel of truth to that. It is destructive to pretend you're something that you aren't. I've said the very same thing in this entire series with Meghan. Why are you pretending to have it together and telling everybody, look what a good person I am, but making no attempts to do that behind the scenes? My problem with Brené Brown is that she almost seems like you are who you are. People need to accept that and let you just be you. You don't have to have a stiff upper lip. You can be a hot mess. People need to accept the hot mess that you are. Okay, let's accept everyone where they're at, but let's not collectively stay there. Let's try to be better people. It just seems like there's a real lack of attempt to be better. Like you've reached the pinnacle of mental health when you're willing to just accept that you're broken and flawed and eternally ill-equipped. I don't like the idea that I would just accept my worst self. I don't like the idea that I would just be the most broken that I've ever been and that I just want everyone to be cool with that. I want to be better. I want to do better for my people, for my family, for the people who depend on me. I'm not saying I have to have it together all the time, but I find it incredibly damning to think that the best I can hope for in life is that I can get everyone around me to just be okay that I'm a mess. Okay, well, Brené Brown said that famous people need to abandon the stiff upper lip and display their frailty. She said if you develop skin so thick that you start to lose the ability to hurt, then you're at risk of feeling nothing at all. Okay, well, I don't think that's mentally healthy either, but is there not some sort of in-between? Talking about his mental health, she advocated, would help other men to throw off the stigma. Yeah, but that kind of only works if a person's overall life looks like it's okay. And then if they decide to reveal their frailty, then you're like, oh, okay, so his frailty doesn't define him. But if a person's life is already complete and total chaotic mess, you have been a mess in the papers for years. Now you're married to a woman who doesn't let you be your own self. And then you come out and say, I'm having mental chaos. That doesn't actually make anybody think, oh, I want a little bit of what he has. Focused on being real, said Brown, Harry would do the world a favor by speaking his truth. Using the royal platform, agreed Meghan, would enable grassroots change to create a better society. Only prejudiced critics would object to their truth. So they're sort of primed to fail here because they're being told, hey, if you go out and say that you have all these problems and that you're just a patchwork of soul-crushing ineptitude, everyone's going to love you for it. But the problem is that that's not actually true. People do want a hopeful message. It's not a hopeful message to just cry all the time in public. Contracted by Apple TV, Harry was paid to tell his personal story under the title Mental Wellness. Stepping into that arena, Harry knew would irritate his brother. Mental health, a cornerstone of William's work with Kate through the Royal Foundation, was the theme of his imminent BBC TV documentary, A Royal Team Talk, tackling mental health. Even more inflammatory was Harry's agreement with Apple to describe intimately his relationship with his family. Harry doesn't even care, though, anymore. I mean, he's so past the point of caring what William and Catherine think. His mind has been so poisoned against his family that he is welcoming these opportunities to jab and to undercut the things that he knows are meaningful to his brother and his brother's work. The details of the two families' divorce was nearly finalized. The royal foundation would be continued by the Cambridges. The Sussexes would create their own charity. Dissatisfied with Jason Knopf and his assistant Christian Jones, the Sussexes appointed a new press officer, Sarah Latham. Sarah Latham had worked for Tony Blair, the Clintons, and the Obamas. So she was well acquainted with the brand of publicity that Meghan would be interested in. Few watching Kate and Meghan warmly kiss at Westminster Abbey for the Commonwealth Day service could have realized that a major drama was about to be played out. On the 14th of March, Buckingham Palace announced that the Fab Four era was over, honestly before it even got started. The Sussexes and Cambridge households were to split. The palace official spokesperson denied that the divorce was evident of a rift. 3 weeks later, Sussex Royal was launched on Instagram. The brand Sussex promised to publish important announcements and shine a light on key issues direct to their followers. Within 6 hours, the site had attracted 1 million people, and that would rise within 1 year to nearly 5 million worldwide. But if you want to compare what those numbers actually are, because 5 million, you're like, wow, that's a lot. The Cambridges had 7.4 million without trying. And even grander and greater, people like David Beckham have 55 million, and Kim Kardashian has 156 million followers. So while they were able to gather 5 million together over the course of a year, that honestly is small potatoes in comparison to other major celebrities. The Sussex's Instagram account announced Harry's dynamic multi-part documentary series with Oprah Winfrey on mental health. And now the truth was out there. Meghan had committed herself and Harry to Oprah Winfrey. The Californian TV star had good reason to believe she was finally in control. And that's where we leave it. But, I mean, I cannot overstate how confused I was about the timeline of Meghan Markle. I really, really, really was not plugged into what was happening with her. I only vaguely knew what was going on once it was over. And even then, I didn't even watch the Oprah interview. I just watched clips of it. I was like, oh, those people are crazy. When I tell you I was naive about these people, I was, because I thought that Meghan didn't get along really good at the palace. She had a bad attitude. Then she decided to go home. And then once she was there, she made some deals. That just shows my colossal naivete about how this stuff works. No, you guys, before the wedding, she was planning it. And probably most of you guys realized that. I had no idea. None whatsoever. I knew she was diabolical. I had no idea just how much of a planner she is, just how much of an operator she is, how much of a networker. No idea whatsoever. And it makes me that much more certain that Harry is going to have a fight on his hands if he ever tries to get away from this woman. Because she's already planned what to do when he tries to get out, when he wakes up and realizes I'm trapped. And unless she decides to let him go, he's not getting out of there. He is her meal ticket. There's no way she's letting go of that cash cow. And when she's wrung him for all he's worth, he's already losing value. He left value the minute he left Britain. She would have been wiser to stay there because she could have still been, cashing in that check. But now that he's left, he's like a car driven off the lot. He was immediately worth less as soon as she came to America.